Hello and welcome back to part 11 of how to make a HexTile board game in Unreal Engine 4. In the last video we made these attacker and defender dice in Blender and brought them in. And in the video before that we started setting up what attacks look like. So here we have a swordsman and he's going to attack this tile with a footman and a spearman. We move in, we get this little preview. So what we're going to do in this next one is when we attack, the other player will get notified because right now they don't know. And then we'll actually get into the battle mechanics where we'll actually use these die. So my idea for this is the attacker will get the red die and the defender the blue die. There is a 0, a 2, 2, 3, and what's the bottom? I think 1. So most likely to roll either a 2 or 1, and then you can get a 3 or a 0, and these will add bonuses to your attack or defense. And for me, both die are the same, but you can customize your die however you like. Because we're going to use dice in this tutorial, I will link below a different tutorial I've done on some of the dice mechanics, which will get you to this point where we have a blueprint for the dice and the basic rolling mechanics. So if you haven't watched that yet and implemented that, watch that video first and then come back to this, because we'll expand off that with both of these dice and then actually using it in the battle mechanics. So the first thing we're going to work on is we have this preview, and when we click attack, nothing's happening, and so we're going to build off that. The first thing we're going to do is notify the client. So how this is working right now is when we choose a tile to attack and we have units selected, we're going to a tile, that's not the tile they're on. The tile we're moving to contains, or is adjacent to the tile we're coming from, and the owner of that tile is not the player, then we'll attack. And what that's doing is we're getting the strength of the defender from the tile, the strength of our army we have selected and we're attacking with, and then we're creating this preview widget, which is just for the player that is attacking to actually get a visual of what they're committing to. And then when they hit attack, that will run this event, which is coming back to the player controller and we're built out. So we're going to run this through the game mode. And the way I think I want to do this is when we're attacking, we get the tile that we're going to. We're going to create this as a variable, and then we'll pass that through. So right click on the tile 2, promote to a variable. We'll just tile 2 is fine, and we'll set that here, and then we will replicate this. This is already running on the server, so that's perfect. And then what we'll do is when we press the attack button, we'll run an event to our game mode. So open up your game mode turn-based, and we will just call this, make a custom event, and attack tile. And we're going to have two inputs here. I think we can do this both with, well, actually, we might need, one second, because I think we have a variable for, selected unit array. Okay, so we know which units we have selected, so we'll pass that through. We also want to pass through the tile 2. And then we'll also pass through not our adjacent, our selected tile from. So I'll pass all this through to the game mode. So these will be the things we need to create in the game mode. So we're actually going to have, flip back to there, 3 variables. One will be our BP unit master, and we'll make this an array. And the other 2 will be our tile blueprint. What did we call that? BP HexTile. Singular object reference is fine. BP HexTile. And this will be attacking army. And this will be tile from, or we'll call this attacking tile and defending tile. Okay. Now we'll go back to our player controller, delete this print string. Just going to slide this down. Actually, need to. So we have our game mode turn-based reference. So we'll get that. And I always just do convert to a validated get. I mean, this should be valid. We need it to be valid. It's just a habit I have, but you can just do a get. And from this, we'll do the attacks tile event. And we'll drag this stuff down here. And we'll pass through our attacking army, our tile from, and tile to. And then from here, we will grab one of our functions, get PC by index, and we'll get this twice. And from our attacking tile, get owner, get player, I think, yeah, okay, get owning player index. So we'll do this for both. And then from this, we'll be able to get the player controller. So connect those here. And we have our attacking army. And then from the defending army, we want to get the units. So get units on tile. Should we route this? Okay, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to populate some widgets on both of the players. So this will be basically the same as our preview widget. So we'll just duplicate that and we'll call this battle, I don't know, begin widget. Open this up. And this is basically going to have all the same type of information. The only thing that's going to be different, and we'll just call this battle, 3 exclamation points, something like that. And this will notify, so this will populate on both the attacker and the defender now. And then from here, we won't need this withdrawal button. And we'll just call this the roll dice. And will be a good text for this. I'll begin battle. Oh, not there, right here. Begin battle. And we'll have a couple errors because we don't need this withdraw button anymore, and we can get rid of this event in the player controller here. Okay. Whoops. So let's go back into our game mode, and we will come off of our player controller and create a widget. And our class will be battle begin. I wonder, can these both? Yeah, so we'll have to kind of duplicate this and then add to viewport. And we can get more of this information. So our player controllers will have our name. Get player name. Pass that through. And grab that again. So this will be our defender. And then from our armies, I might just kind of go like this and then reroute this down here. Grab the attacker strength. Clean this up in a bit. So let's grab this. And actually, we're going to do one thing first. Let's promote this to a variable. No, I just realized we actually built some of this out, so apologies for that. Delete that variable and delete that down here. So we previously built these defender and attacker functions. So the input is the attacking player index and the armies, and then from there we get the player controller and we set the strength of the army. So we already built that out, so that makes this a little bit easier. So we'll actually take this, and this is our attack from, so plug that in here, and then we can drag out our defender strength and move this over. Sorry, I'm kind of going in a bad order here. Drag this. Okay, so there's our attacker player index. Here's our defender. Let's just drag this stuff over. That. Okay, and then with the, from our defending tile, we'll pass these units through. And we are setting these variables of attacker and defender strength, so that's perfect. Okay, so then we can grab this again, connect that here, and then we can just grab these variables, defender strength and attacker armor strength. And there's actually one more thing I'm going to add. So instead of, because right now we're kind of testing this with 2 players, but we'll have more. So we want more than just the attacker and defender to know that there's an attack going on. Since it's going to be turn-based, every player needs to be aware of that. So the way we're actually going to do this is we have this PC list, which we are adding player controllers to it as they log into the game. So what we'll do instead here is we'll get this, and we'll do a for each loop. And so now every player controller that's in the game will get this widget. And I actually want to add one more step in here. So this should work, and we can test it quick. But what we got to figure out is who is going to be in control of actually rolling the dice. So let's test this first. We attack, hit attack. Okay. We got to do one more thing first. Not the preview widget, so we got to change this to battle begin. And let's go into this widget quick. When we click these withdraw and attack buttons, yeah, okay. So when we draw, we get the reference and we remove it. We just got to copy that down to our attack and our player controller. So we got to get rid of the old widget and then we'll create the new. So let's test this again. Get that a little bit better. Okay. And we attack. So working on the server, I'm getting this error on the client. Access reading none at the viewport. Let's see what this is. Trying to read the... Okay, so I think... Actually, I know 100% what's going on. This needs to be run on the player controller on the client side. So go back to your player controller and create a custom event, and we'll call this battle begin underscore client. And we need this to be replicated running on owning client, reliable. And then from our game mode, we can just cut this, paste this here. So what's happening is your widgets, HUDs, all that only exists on the client side and the server side. So since the game mode only exists on the server, I can't run this to the clients, the other players, because it has to be run on the client. It works for whoever's hosting, but that's not the proper way of doing it. So anyways, you type in self, your only player, and drag this over a little bit, and then just drag these over to add the pin, file save. Now let's go back to the game mode. What do we call this? Battle begin client. So off this array element, battle begin client. Connect that here, and now we can pass all this through. Okay, this should work now. Compile, save. Let's try this again. Attack, boom. And both players are seeing the same information, so this seems to be good. And our swordsman has an attack of 2, so for the attacker strength, that makes sense. And our defender has a spearman, which has a defensive 2, and a footman, which is a defensive 1. So that is great. One bug we'll have to deconflict later is obviously when you're attacking, you shouldn't be able to do anything else. So we'll come back to that later, but we'll finish building this out for now. And the first thing I want to do is, I should have showed this one sooner, but I'll come back in. So player attacks, they both have the option of hitting the begin battle. This button is what's going to trigger the dice to roll. So we probably only want this on one of the players, for sure, maybe just the attacker and defender, and not the other players that are in the game but not participating in this battle. I think what I'm going to do is, let's go into this widget, our battle begin. Let's create a new variable, and we'll use a boolean. Let's do is attacker, question mark. And let's make this instance editable, expose on spawn, and by default leave that as not valid. And we're going to create another variable, and we'll call this battle begin button viz. And for this type, type in viz, or what is it, eSlate viz, yeah, eSlate visibility. File save. And by default, make this collapsed. So go back into your designer, and on this roll dice button, in the details, search visibility. I'll explain what this is doing once we got it done, and bind this to the battle begin button visibility. So by default, this value is going to be collapsed, which is basically same as hidden, but it doesn't take up space. You can do collapsed or hidden. It really doesn't make any difference in this case. But what's going to happen is the attacker, this button will be visible, so the attacker can actually hit the button to initiate the roll of the dice. But everybody else is just getting a preview, or is notified and seeing the information. The attacker will actually be the one that is able to push the button. So the way the logic will work is get this, hold B left click for a branch, connect that to there, and if you are the attacker, then we'll set this visibility to true, and if not, collapsed. And now let's come back into our player PC turn-based, and actually we'll do this maybe in the, yeah, so let's pass this pin through to here, and we'll do the logic for then the game mode. So drag off of this, and so this array element is going to return the player controller for each loop, everybody that's in the game. So we'll just do a simple equals, and we'll pass this through, And so does this player controller equal our attacking player controller? I'm just going to rearrange these. So I'm going to put this up top, the array element down below, so it looks a little bit cleaner. Actually, maybe this might be the cleanest. So I get kind of OCD on how the nodes kind of flow. There, that's good enough. So if the player controller were actually casting this event to create the widget is the same as the attacking player controller, this will return as true, which will then trigger this as true, and we'll set the button to visible. So let's try this again. Okay, I'm back post Unreal Engine crash. Let's try this again. Click, click, attack. Perfect. So the attacker has the ability to begin the battle. The defender does not. So it's just what we wanted. Okay, so next we're going to play around with the dice rolls and actually start to trigger those events. So this is where it's important to make sure you watch the previous video, because this will build exactly off of that. So first thing we have to do is under blueprints, open the level blueprint. So the way we have this working currently is in the HUD we have this roll dice button. For me, I set the visibility to, I thought I did. I don't think it's on my HUD anymore. Oh, it is. Okay, so you can really kind of remove this from your HUD, but I'm just going to set it to hidden. I don't want anybody just to be able to roll dice at will. For the previous video, that's where we had it. But anyways, when you click that button, essentially the logic is going to be the same, but we spawn the dice. And this says runs the player controller, which then tells the game mode to spawn the dice, or remove all of the existing dice, and then call the spawn die event. And we have this running in our level blueprint. So on the begin play, the level blueprint gets the game mode, and it binds this spawn dice event from here, which is really running from the game mode. And then we spawn the plate for the dice to land on, and then we figure out where to spawn the die. We spawn a singular die, which will change to 2, and then the dice roll, and it does all this series of events. When it stops, when that is true, we then figure out what side the dice is landing on, and that gets cast to the game mode for these numbers. And this is what we're going to have to play around with, and kind of changing how the die roll works. Because we currently are we're getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as rolls. And the way I'm going to do this is a 1, 2, blank, 1, 2, 3 die. So not as big rolls, you get a 0. That's just because with how my units work, you're getting 1 attack, 2 attack, 3 attack. So I don't want the dice. I want the dice to add a little bit of variation, but not be the thing that is like. If it's too random and too big, the impact from the dice, then it just makes the battles more random, and kind of depletes some of the strategy. So that's why I elected for a dice that has some smaller rolls. And I might even go smaller than this. I might go 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, or something like that. But we'll roll with this for now. So we'll just call this, rename this static mesh battle dice. And let me think for a second, because we have the materials for this dice. Just trying to think if we need to. I think we can just use our existing die. So open up your BP die, and instead of the die standard in our static mesh component, type in our battle dice. Okay, and our default will just be the attacker material. And what we'll do is in our construction script, we'll use this. So let's make a new variable, and it will just be Let me think about this. I'm actually going to do something a little bit different. Come back into where your die are. We're going to create a enumeration. I think this will work out to be the best way. And then under blueprints, enumeration, let's do battle dice type. And I'll end this with enum. And within this enumeration, if you're not familiar with this, I'll explain it once we kind of implement it. We'll have a attacker dice or die and defender die. So basically, these are your type of dice. Your game, you might have more variety of dice and different reasons for that. So that's why I'm kind of going this way, because it'll be easier to do some more customization later. So we can close out of this enumeration, just go back into our VP die. And then this variable, let's call this die type. And for the type, we'll type in battle dice type enum. By default, attacker dice is fine. So we'll do in our construction script. And if you don't have that open, it's right here. And this runs as soon as this thing comes into existence, which is similar to the begin play. But I think it kind of runs first, and that'll be important because we're going to set the material. So I want to run it here so that the material kind of sets right when it gets created instead of like a slight delay after, which could happen from the begin play. Okay, and so if we're the attacker, come off from the top, static mesh, grab the die, and set material. And we'll duplicate this. Okay, and so if it's the attacker die, type in dice material attacker. And if it's the defender die, dice material defender. Is it die? Is it defender? There we go. Okay. And let's make this instance editable and expose on spawn. And let's come back into our viewport, and we're going to have to rename some of these arrows. So this is obviously an arrow 0. This one over here is an arrow 1. Over here, arrow 1 and underscore 1. So we'll do it that way. This one on the bottom is our arrow 3. So which one is this? Is that? Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. This is arrow 2. And this one. Ooh, I think I got out of whack. This one is arrow. Which one's this? Which one do we name arrow 0? Screwed this whole thing up. So the problem is they all have an origin of 0, so they weren't highlighting right. Okay, so this one's actually. Oh, and then we're gonna have duplicates and oh, what a mess. Okay, so make sure you're grabbing the right arrow. Okay, so this one's arrow 2 underscore 2. Okay, this one is arrow 1. This one is arrow 1 underscore 1. This is arrow 2, that's fine. And okay, and this is arrow 0. And I'll rename this to 3. Perfect. Okay. Sorry about that, but yeah, basically, right, you want to make sure the arrow that's pointing out is for the correct side. And we'll name them here because this is what we'll actually figure out. And let's come back into our event graph. And we'll have to run through some of this logic again. So arrow 3, this is true, this needs to set the die roll to 3. Arrow 2, set it to 2. Arrow 1, set this to 1. This is also a 1. So all I'm doing is I'm just reading the arrow name. Arrow 2, if that's true, then we need to set the die roll to 2. This one is arrow 0, set it to 0. Okay. And this sets as a variable, or an integer variable, which then gets cast to the game mode. Perfect. Okay. And let's go back into our level blueprint. Actually, I'm going to do one more thing. Let's go back into our editor. So we have this random sphere here, and these have tags. Yep, so we have 2 right now. There's this one way up here, that's the die spawn. And this one down here, that's the plate spawn. We want 2 die spawns. One for the attacker, one for the defender. So I'm just going to slide this one over a little bit, and holding Alt, clicking this, drag this one over a little bit. And let's rename these so we know what we're doing. This is the die plate spawn point. It's this one down below. And will this one be the die attack spawn point, and this will be the die defend. And just to be more efficient, we'll do SP, SP, and SP. And filter down to your tags here. So plate spawn, that's fine. But this, let's make this def die spawn for defender. And this one, let's make ATK for attack die spawn. So our attack spawn, or attack die will spawn here, defender die will spawn here, plate will spawn down here, and then we'll get the corresponding rolls from both of them. So now with that done, let's go back into our level blueprint. And plate spawn, this still works. So basically what's happening is the level is looking for an actor that has this tag, and when it finds it, it'll spawn the plate there. Similarly, we're doing that again for the die, but instead of die spawn, we need the ATK attack die spawn. So this will find that spawn point, and it will spawn a die, and by default, this is attacker, which is fine, and that'll all work. And then what we can do is copy all of this, paste it down here, drag it a little bit over to the right, and after the completion of this loop, instead of looking for the attacker die, look for the defend DEF die spawn. And for this one, set the enumeration to defender. Okay, I think this should work. Something we'll want to do is maybe build this out. Let's think about the best way to do this. I think for now, might just print string, and we can just kind of test it. How do I remove pins? We don't need this many. So we just have 0 through 3. These will do different things. And actually, I think the other piece, alright, sorry, one more thing. In this event, let's add another variable. And this will be that die type. What do we type? Yeah, battle dice type in there. And let's drag this over and switch. Because we're going to be getting the same roll, or the same event will be rolling from each die. So we want to just be able to differentiate, is this roll from the attacker die or the defender die? And we'll do that via this enumeration. So we'll run our attack logic here, and we just copy and paste this down, and then our defense. And actually, I might do one more thing here quick. Let's make another variable. We'll call this attacker die roll. And let's make that an integer. File save. And we can duplicate that and call this one the defender die roll. And I'm holding Alt and dragging out the set. Drag this over a little bit. So plug these in like this. Defender, attacker, and we'll just pass this through and set them. Cool. And then I think we actually don't need these switches, so we'll get rid of those, and then we'll just print string with these roll. But let's pull off this and do an append quick. And we'll just call this attacker space, and the bottom will be this. And this is really just for testing, so you don't necessarily need to do this if you don't want to. So I want to make sure this is all working. Okay. And I think the last thing we have to do, so close this. Where is the where we have to get that HUD back up? Widgets, begin battle widget. Okay. So when we press the begin battle, which we have an event here, this will have to run back to the player controller first. So I think we're setting a reference in that, yeah, alpha begin play PC owner. So we'll get this, and then back to our player controller. We'll just keep running that along in this stream, but maybe we'll make a different category later. Let's make a custom event and just call it battle dice roll. In this underscore server, this needs to be a server event and reliable. And I think, yeah, okay. So I already have this event in our player controller, spawn dice server. We can just, here, I'll just drag this whole thing down, but we don't really need this other event anymore. I'll keep it around, but just put it over here. But we can steal this logic. So when I get rid of any random remaining dice, which by default we do have them auto deleting, but it's just a good check. And then we will call the spawn. And let's go back in, and what do we call that again? Battle dice roll. Battle dice roll server. File save, and let's give it a go. And let's grab both of these guys. Okay, it's 3-on-3, good attack, and no more truth. Good. I think I can keep, yeah. And so we can keep pressing this. We'll do some logic, but let's check the top. So attacker 2, defender 0. That looks good. Let's get the client involved in this too. Make sure they're saying the same thing. 3-2. Oh, okay. We do have a problem with the material on the client side. So let's go back to our VP die. Oh, this kind of stinks. Should be replicated. Class defaults replicated. Okay, we're gonna do. I think this will work. So let's create a variable. I'll show you guys a new replication method if you're not familiar with this, called rep notify. So we'll call this the die material, and this needs to be a material. And for this replication, we're going to do rep notify. So this essentially works as a multicast, but the problem with the multicast is basically if the client isn't in the proximity, doesn't see it, they don't always get the multicast. But the rep notify, when the client is involved or in the proximity, then they will see it. So it's just a good fail-safe. So what we'll do is we'll drag off this, hit set, and this creates a function. Right up here, you should have a onRep die material. So let's grab this, Control X to cut it, and we'll just paste that into here. Oh, I think I'm missing, yeah, I need this too. Well, actually, we'll keep this here because we'll have to set the material. So keep this here, copy it, paste it, and this will be the front of our code. Selecting things correctly. Okay. Good. And we already have the attacker and defender, so let's come back to our construction script. And this will be our attacker, or ATK, is that what we called it? No. What are those materials called? Die material attacker. Oh, this might need to be a material instance variable. Die attacker. Yeah, there we go. So make sure this variable is a material instance. And die material defender. So now whenever this variable gets set, and this works for any variable that is a rep notify, it'll run this function which should populate across the server and then to the clients. And instead of actually hard coding in the materials, you can actually use this variable, which I know seems a little redundant because we're setting it and then we're using it again, but this should work. Okay, let's test this again. And attack in the battle. Good. So now you should have both the server and the client with same color dice and should be returning the same rolls. 3-1, 3-1, same colors. Perfect. So I think I'm going to call it 0-0. I think I'm going to call it here for now. What I want to do in the next video is obviously finish up building the code on the dice. So we'll use the value we get to add to the attacker strength and the defender strength, and then we'll start working on battle resolution. And kind of do a little bit of bug fixes, like when you begin this attack, can't move somewhere else. You get locked in. Later on, I know you're probably looking at this like this is a turn-based game, but it doesn't seem very turn-based. That is super easy for us to implement, but the testing is a lot easier. It's a lot quicker if we don't actually have to change turns. Another bug we have too is this tile belongs to the blue player, so it thinks we're attacking the tile, but there's no units. So we'll do some kind of bug fixes and clean up the next one and finish the die code. But yeah, hope you were able to kind of follow along. If not, just drop some comments in the chat here, and I'll be happy to answer them. But yeah, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and again, if you have questions, fire away. Thanks.